And while you turn to Luke 15, just kind of bring out everybody up to date. We're doing a series of sermons called Identity. And it's kind of a three-part series. We're looking in the book of Luke, we're looking in the book of Romans, and we're looking in the book of Ephesians. Right now we're in the book of Luke. And with that, what we're discovering is who Jesus is, according to what Luke has given us that information. Now when we get to Romans, we're going to look at the salvation we have, what that is. Romans identifies the salvation. And Ephesians identifies who we are as Christians. And so we're ready to look at Luke chapter 15, where we've got three parables that Jesus tells that will help us see a little bit about who God is. Luke 15, verse 1. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him. But the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. Verse 8. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Does she not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Jesus continued. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he'd spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he had come to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare, and here I'm starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe, put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate." There's a boss of this big company, and he needed to call one of his employees about an urgent issue with one of the main computers that the company had. So he dials the employee's home phone number and was greeted with a child's whispered response, "Hello." Well, feeling put out because he was going to have to talk to a youngster, he said, "Is your daddy home?" "Well, yes," whispered this little voice. "May I talk with him?" the man said. Well, to his surprise, the little voice said, "No." Wanting to talk to an adult, he asked, "Is your mommy there?" "Yes," came the whispered answer. "May I talk with her?" Again, the whispered voice said, "No." Knowing it's not likely that a young child is going to be left home alone like that, as the boss decided he would leave a message with the person who should be watching over the child. So he asked, "Is there anyone there besides you?" He whispered, "Yes, the policeman." Wondering what a cop would be doing at his employer's house, he asked, "May I speak with the policeman?" "No," whispered the child. "He's busy." "Busy doing what?" asked the boss. "Talking to mommy and daddy and the fireman." Well, he kind of get concerned, and he's even worried a little bit. He's a lot frustrated when he heard what sounded like a helicopter coming through the earpiece of the phone. He asked, "What's that noise?" A helicopter," answered the little whispered voice. "Well, what's going on there?" asked the boss. Well, in a whispered voice, the child answered, "The search team has just landed the helicopter." And he's alarmed and concerned now, and he's asking, "Why are they there?" Still whispering. The young voice replied with a muffled giggle, "They're looking for me." Sometimes kids carry it a little bit too far, don't they? Some kids are really good at hide and seek, obviously. And there's others that really quite don't understand it. You know, you can't see me now. When I was working with church camp at Shelby County Christian Assembly, almost every week, the first night, we had what was traditionally called the faculty hunt, which means that the faculty would go hide all over the campgrounds, and the kids would get an opportunity to it was hide and seek. And so, for about 15 minutes while the faculty's going out and hiding, the dean or somebody would be in the chapel or the cafeteria or wherever the indoor meeting area was that they would be doing this, and would be giving them the rules for that, plus talking to them about a couple other things about the week of camp. And so we would hide all over the camp. I actually bought camouflage clothes. And I'd hide in bushes and trees and things like that. There's been times I'd lie in a ditch with a black sleeping bag wrapped around me. So I almost got stepped on one time. And I think I hid under a van one time, in fact. My friend Marshall Conklin, he would take his camp chair, walk right out in the middle of the ball field, sit down in the camp chair wide open, and they'd never see him. I tried that, it didn't work. I don't know, Marshall may have a cloaking device that he put around him, some kind of thing. Hiding is often different than being lost, isn't it? Hiding is something we do on purpose. The lost will sometimes hide, but that's because they don't really want to be found. But God never ceases to reach out to those that are lost because he wants to save the lost. He wants to save them. So Jesus here is in the area of Perea. Now, I don't know if you know your Bible lands. Perea is a little region on the eastern side of the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee that is about equal to the upper half, or a little bit more than the upper half length of the land of Israel. And so he's in this area, he's preaching and teaching and telling people who need to know, who need to hear the good news about God. And there's Jewish leaders there, and they're muttering. He welcomes sinners and eats with them. Wow. They were looking for something to complain about. They didn't like it. There was an attitude there that was kind of talked about this morning talked about this morning in the Sunday school lesson. And so here we have a bad situation. Now, what's your first inclination whenever somebody mutters like the Pharisees or says something against you? Well, there's a lot of different reactions. Sometimes the person will bite back. They'll lash out at whoever is making the attack. And sometimes someone will be a total wimp and they'll just kind of, get quiet and go away and not do it again. Then there's the true cowardly people, those who will turn around and jump on the other side with, like the Pharisees, and agree with them out loud. Or inside, they're silent. They agree with they don't agree with them. They want to go back and do that. But you know something? None of those are godly, biblical ways to respond to criticism. They're unbiblical. You see it a lot in the church, sadly. They're unbiblical, but that's not how Jesus would do it. So here we are in Luke 15, and we've got Jesus telling 3 parables to help these people understand who God is and what God is about. And so we see the search begin. And so here's what the 3 parables are. There's a lost sheep, there's a lost coin, and there's a lost son. Okay? Now in Israel, in that day and time, the economy of Israel was pretty much supported by 3 basic industries. One was fishing. And some of you know about fishing, I think. A couple of you anyway. Okay? I mean, that was a big industry. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of an arid country, so there's not a lot of farmland. And so fishing was a huge, most of it came from the Sea of Galilee, but that was a huge industry. In fact, some of Jesus' disciples were fishermen, weren't they? Well, then there's the olive industry. I mean, think about what they can do with olives. Well, you can eat olives, not me. I don't like olives. But there's the olive industry where you can eat olives. And you can make olive into oil. And you can use that oil for a variety of different things. You use it for cooking. You can use it for medicinal purposes. You can use it for beautification, like softening your skin. And it was also used for anointing. And then there was shepherding. The sheep. The sheep was a big industry. Because when you think about it, sheep, they grow wool. You shear the sheep, you take that wool, you spin it into thread. I don't know if you bleach it beforehand or afterwards. And then you can use that thread to make cloth, which will sometimes be made into clothing or other kinds of things that will be dyed at some point. We're going to eat here in just a little bit, and the MLT would be pretty good. Mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. Sheep were good for food, okay? But more importantly, sheep were used in the sacrifice to pay for the sins of people, all right? So what we've got is that the shepherd has lost a sheep, and he searches very hard to find that sheep. It's no wonder he did, because the sheep was very, very important, even though it's one. Even though it's one sheep. And I understand the imagery there is that of a head shepherd. Most shepherding had a head shepherd with other shepherds that worked with him. And so he would have been the one that had gone out to search. He left the rest to go find the one. And then you've got the lost coin. Money's a precious object, isn't it? I mean, some of us attribute more to money than we should, more loyalty, more desire to it than we should, but money's a precious object. And my understanding is that when Jesus talks about this silver coin, it was worth basically a denarius, which is about 1 day's wage. Figure out when you were working, if you're retired, if you're working now, what your day's wage would be. And that gives you an idea how significant one coin is monetarily. But I have understood this is more than about money. These 10 coins were this woman's dowry. The money that was given to the man that she was going to marry. And if for some reason things turned out where he would divorce her or he would die, that money became hers or was returned. And if any of it was missing, that was disgraceful. The woman's integrity was in question. So it's no wonder she searches very hard for it, if that is the case. And so she tears the house apart. And she looks under everything. She looks in every nook and cranny and mouse hole that there is, trying to find that coin. And then we have the son who ran off. He wanted the inheritance, which was, since he was asking for the inheritance before his dad was dead, was an insult to his dad's honor. But dad gave him the money. And even though he was not the oldest son, even though he was not the primary heir to the father's estate, the father still gave him the money, and he takes it and he runs off. And he's wasting money on prostitutes and partying and drinking. In other places of the Bible, it's often called carousing. It's not a good thing. But this son, even though he wasn't the number one son, even though he wasn't the number one heir, was loved very much by the father. He was significant to the father. And so it's no wonder that the father watched for the return of his son. And every chance, every spare moment he had, he would turn to look toward the road, apparently, and watching for the son's return. But when we look at these parables, and we can learn a lot about these parables, that I sent out in the Friday Factor email about Marvin Phillips. One time he said that I've preached, he had more than 100 sermons on Luke 15. That's a lot of sermons on those few verses that there is, but that was his favorite passage of Scripture. But there still is one main point that is so significant and important to us, is that these parables are about God. They're about God's desire and how God reacts to people being saved. So we see by the parables that something or someone is lost and the search is on. But we also find that the desire and the longing are never lost in this situation. Max Lucado tells a story about a girl named Christina who's from Brazil. She's bored. She feels like her parents are a little too strict, and she gets to miss out on the enjoyment of life. And so she wants to go to Rio for the excitement that you can find in Rio. And one morning, her mother, Maria, finds Christina's bed empty. Now, she knew immediately where her daughter had gone, so she quickly throws some clothes in a bag, gathers up all her money, and heads for the bus station. And on the way to the bus station, what she does is she stops in one of those photo booth things like you'd see in the mall or in a drugstore or something like that. Takes a number of photos of herself. She puts them in her purse, and she takes the next bus to Rio de Janeiro. Months later, she takes the pictures and she puts them up all over town as she looks for her daughter, but she doesn't find her daughter. And when she can't find her daughter, she gets on the bus and weeps all the way home from Rio. And a few months later, her daughter Christina is walking down the stairs of the hotel where she's at. She's already worn down by life. Her young face is tired. The youth of excitement does not dance in her eyes anymore. In fact, it speaks more of pain and fear. And 1,000 times over, she's longed to return home, because she remembers that warm, secure feeling she had of love and acceptance with her mother. She wanted to experience that with her mother again, but she really thought it was too late to turn back. So as she reaches the bottom of the stairs, her eyes notice a familiar face. She looked again, and there on the lobby mirror was a picture of her mother. She got very nervous when she saw that picture. And she walks over and she takes the picture and looks at it and turns it over. On the back it says, "Whatever you've done, whatever you've become, please come home." And Christina did. Christina's mom pulled out all the stops to find her, to do everything she could to have her child come back home. And that's exactly what God is doing with his children and for his children. It's not his will that anyone perish. No one in this room he wants to perish. No one in this world does he want to perish. And so he says, whatever you've done, whatever you've become, it doesn't matter. Please return to Jesus. I almost can't imagine losing a child to the world, that is. It would be hard, I'm certain. I know it is hard, and it's for a couple reasons I understand it. Because I've seen the pain and the anguish of others who have lost a child to the ways of the world. Even non-Christian parents who see their child going off in a way that they see morally wrong. They struggle with that. It hurts with it. I've been through it with some. But also, my love for my kids is strong. I know that if they were lost to the world, I would be aching so very hard for them because I love them so very much. See, I look forward to every time my kids come home. And I may not throw a party when they do, or I might. I may not jump up and down, but I might. Well, no, I couldn't jump up and down anymore, but I'd want to. Inside, there is a party going on. I'm celebrating. My kid's here. You know, I may not express it in exuberant methods and manners, but man, I'm glad that they're here. See, until hope's gone, the longing for the lost is always aching in the heart. The shepherd didn't want to lose a sheep. He cared about the sheep that much. Its life was that precious. The woman didn't want to lose the coin. It was critical to her integrity and to her honor. The father didn't want to lose the son. He loved him. So the hopefulness, the longing, the desire is always there. That's why I believe God the Father is represented most strongly in the parable about the father and the lost son. Because God, what he does, He sends out rescuers to search for and lead the lost home. That would be you and me, because we've been rescued already. And so if we've been rescued, he sends the rescuers out to rescue more. That's why God scours every place there is in the world so that he can save those who have strayed. And so he sends some of us to places that most of us have never heard of. That's why God watches longingly for the return of those who will be coming up the road, because before we get to the door, he will meet us. See, God never gives up on a person as long as they're living. God is, as Francis Thompson says in the title of his poem, the hound of heaven, constantly pursuing us. I'd read the poem, but it'd be longer than the sermon. But it's descriptive of how much God wants you and I and the rest of this world to be saved. I have a friend. I know you're surprised. It's not Ken this time. Okay? I have a friend. We were college freshmen together. I mean, we're not close friends. A little more than acquaintances back then, at least. But we started college together. He's a singer-songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee. And he's written a few songs that have had some popularity. His name is Larry Bryant. And the song I'm referring to is That's When the Angels Rejoice. You may have heard the Gaither Vocal Band performing that at some time. This is how part of that song goes. When the Model T first hit the street, it didn't bring all heaven to its feet. And when the first computer was born, they didn't blow old Gabriel's horn. There's only one thing that we're sure about that can make the angels jump and shout. It's when a sinner makes the Lord his choice. That's when the angels rejoice. Now, heaven doesn't strike up a band for any occasion at hand. It's got to be a special thing to make those angels dance and sing. Now, when the United States became a nation, there was no angelic celebration. But when one lost sinner comes back home, they jump for joy around the throne. That's when the angels rejoice. Why are the angels rejoicing? I mean, think about that. Why are they rejoicing? Are they party animals? No. It's because God is pleased, and more than pleased, and more than content now. He's rejoicing himself. He's joyful about the relationship that the saved individual has with him. God's a happy being in this moment, because the child has come home. See, friends, Jesus has shown us what God thinks and how God is. In fact, Jesus has told us he does not do anything except for what the Father has shown him and told him to do. He does not say anything except for what God the Father has told him to say. You want to know God? Look at Jesus. Get to know Jesus in that relationship. I'm grateful I have a Heavenly Father who loves me so much that he sent Jesus to save me and sent Christians to show me the way to Jesus. I mean, if we're lost, that means we don't know the directions, do we? God has given Jesus for our salvation. And he sent rescuers out, began with the apostles, and now it's every Christian that is in the world. And they're the rescuers. They're the ones that are out here telling people about Jesus Christ, so that those people can be rescued too, so they won't be lost anymore. Aren't you glad God enjoys your salvation? Amen. Father, as we rejoice in the Lord today because of our salvation with him, we are so grateful that you love us that much, that you rejoice in who we are and what we do as people who follow you. We love to make the angels dance and sing and to jump and shout because of the contentment you have, the joy you have when the lost sinner comes home. And Father, as rescuers ourselves, let us be on that rescue mission. You've sent us. Let us not be cowardly and shy away from it. And let us not be overconfident and ruin it. Let us be led by the Spirit to teach, to show, and to lead people to Jesus Christ. If there's any that needs to make a decision today, Father, touch their hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to sing an invitation song. If you have a decision you'd like to make, please